One of the first things we know about Israel is the biblical story of God calling Abraham and Sarah to give birth to a great nation, which becomes known as Israel. In the biblical story, God calls them to leave their ancestral home in Mesopotamia and to follow God's lead to a new land as that new nation. At the same time, God joins to the calling certain promises and obligations which bind the people together with God in a covenant. So Israel, the Jewish people, has always understood itself as having a collective identity, and Judaism has developed as the whole way of life shared by that group of people. It includes religion, to be sure, but it's more than religion. Jewish refers to the sacred and the profane, to the daily and the divine. Perhaps your study of texts from the Bible into the 20th century has already begun to expand your understanding of Jews and Judaism in this direction, as you have come to explore what it means when Jews speak of themselves as a covenant people. Next, we'll meet Rabbi Dr. Daniel Hartman, president of the Shalom Hartman Institute, as he addresses the significance of peoplehood for Jews.
In order to more fully understand the way the Jewish tradition understands the notion of covenant, there's a dimension of this covenantal relationship with God that I'd like to explore today, a dimension that's not that well known. And that is the place of peoplehood as the carrier and also in many ways as one of the key content features of what a covenantal relationship between the Jewish people and God means. The first covenantal moment is in Genesis 12, when God turns to Abraham and says, "Go forth from your father's land, from the place of your birth, to the land that I will show you." God doesn't say to Abraham, "And if you fulfill this request, I will bestow all the blessings of the earth upon you, and I will love you, and I will take care of you." God says to Abraham, "Go forth, go to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation." Almost telling Abraham it's not about you. This covenant that I am beginning here in Genesis 12 is not a covenant with individuals. It's not a covenant with the select few. It's a covenant which is meant to be carried by a people. And that's why Ruth, in her famous statement to Naomi, her mother-in-law, when she makes a declaration of joining Judaism and the covenant, later becoming a paradigm for future converts, she states, "Your people are my people, and your God is my God." To be a Jew, you have to first be willing to say, "Your people are my people." That's what the covenant means. And it's only within the context of a people could you then go to the next stage of "Your God is my God." Now, a very meaningful and profound example of this is in Exodus 32. God is about to give the Torah to Moses, an expression of this covenant. And the Jewish people are worshiping a golden calf. And God says to Moses, "Stop, go down." Now, the rabbinic tradition understands that this is a very seminal moment where God is basically putting on hold a plan which has been unfolding since the beginning of the book of Genesis. What's going on? The rabbis put the following words in God. When God said to Moses, "Go down," the rabbis say, God said to Moses, "Go down. I have given you greatness only for the sake of this people. And now that they have sinned, what need do I have of thee?" In the Jewish tradition, the covenant doesn't create a place for an individual to stand with God on the mountain. There is no individual redemption in the Jewish tradition. You could be Moses, but you don't have a place on the mountain if the Jewish people aren't with you. And if the Jewish people are sinning and going in another direction, and they can't hear Torah right now, there is no Torah. Now, what this means is that the covenant, or rather, peoplehood is not merely the framework within which we carry the covenant. Peoplehood also shapes and defines what we understand as what it means to be a Jew. I would put it this way. To be a Jew is not primarily a modality of doing, it's a modality of being. You're not Jewish because you observe Torah. You're Jewish first and foremost because you are part of a people. Now, in this sense, Paul is correct. When Paul looked at Abraham, Paul said, Abraham didn't keep mitzvot. It's true. There is no Torah. There is no guidance. There is no law in the book of Genesis. Law only enters into our tradition in the book of Exodus, when there is a people. And it's for this reason that the Jewish people perceive our covenant as eternal. It's not that we see ourselves as the chosen people who are wonderful and excellent beyond sin. The Bible is painfully honest about the Jewish people. Sometimes I feel it's like too much information. I wish they wouldn't be so honest. Every single failure that we could potentially have done, we do. And the Bible makes sure that we know about it. The Bible doesn't fantasize about how good we are. And the eternality of our covenant is not based on the righteousness of Jews, but in our sense that God chooses us pre-Torah. That God embraces a people and says, with you I am going to walk. Now it's true, I want something of you. I want you to do. But before you do, you are. And I could get angry or I could get sad, but the core covenantal relationship between me and a people lasts forever. Because it's not a covenant of doing, but of being. Now, this is very powerfully expressed in one of the more famous books that many of us know, and that is around the Passover Seder. We read a Haggadah, we tell the story. Now, in that story, it tells of 4 different children: a wise child, a wicked child, a simple child, and a child who doesn't know how to ask. And the Haggadah challenges us. This book challenges us. How do you talk to each child? Now, what defines the wicked child in our tradition? According to the Haggadah, the wicked child is the one who gets up and says, what is this worship to you? And the text says, because the child says to you and not to him or her, they have separated themselves from the community, and in so doing, they have become heretics on the essence. Now, what does it mean? Very often when we talk about heresy, it has to do with beliefs. What's your monotheism? What is your perception of God? In the Jewish tradition, the heretic is not someone who doesn't believe in God. The heretic is someone who doesn't see themselves as part of the Jewish people. And Maimonides, who obligates and prohibits separating oneself from the community, says that if there's a Jew who's the perfect Jew, they never sin at all. No sin. Imagine such a being. The only thing they do is that when the Jewish people are happy, they're not happy. And when the Jewish people are sad, they're not sad. Maimonides says, this person is walking like a non-Jew. I don't care how many commandments you do. I don't care what food you eat and what synagogue you pray in. And I don't care about how pious you are and how much you love me. You don't become a Jew. You don't enter into this covenantal modality of being unless you're part of a people. Now, our challenge is to balance the two. Because to be a Jew is not simply to be and to stop. It's to be and to aspire. It's to be and to yearn and to work to be more. Torah is the way of life of this people. But it doesn't become the criteria on the basis of which the covenant exists or doesn't exist. And it is not even the criteria on the basis of which we understand the core sense of who we are. To be a Jew is to walk with God. But to be a Jew is to be a part of a people. And it's when you understand this dimension of our covenantal relationship, this sense of self-understanding that to be a Jew is to be a part of a people, you can then understand the centrality of Israel as a part of our covenantal relationship. Because as a people, to be a Jew is to be a part of this people. Israel is the sovereign expression of my covenantal self-understanding of being a Jew. Consequently, in order to have, in many ways, a deeper understanding of how Judaism and the Jewish people understand themselves, it is critical to understand the relationship of the Jewish people with the state of Israel. It's not simply a place we live. It's a place in which we give expression to the fact that to be a Jew is to be a part of a people. Thank you.